Hello guys and welcome back. Before we get going, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Since releasing our first video on the aftermath of the Champions League final at Stade de France, both UEFA and the French authorities have been quick to blame the Liverpool fans for the mayhem that led to 68 arrests that Saturday night. However, eyewitness reports and video evidence from the ground paint a much different picture. This is part 2 of chaos at Stade de France. At a press conference on Monday the 30th of May, 2 days after the match, French Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin exclusively blamed the British supporters for the shocking incidents witnessed at the final between Liverpool and Real Madrid. He said, quote, 30 to 40,000 British supporters tried to gain entry to the stadium either without a ticket or with a fake ticket. He spoke of a massive fraud on an industrial scale, claiming that 70% of the paper tickets checked at the initial filter checkpoint were fake. Newly appointed Sports Minister Amélie Oudéa-Castéra looked like a deer in the headlights as she tried to defend her government's position. Darmanin's claims have been ridiculed by Liverpool Football Club, supporters and journalists who were at the game and witnessed firsthand the incompetent organisation from UEFA and complete lack of communication and violence from the police. It would appear that some supporters were in possession of fake tickets, but nothing close to the scale suggested by Darmanin. According to official figures reviewed by the New York Times, the exact number of fake tickets intercepted by the stewards guarding the entrances was just 2,589. That number is nearly 3 times the usual number of falsifications for a Champions League final, but far less than the outlandish figure plucked out of the sky by the Interior Minister. Approximately 60,000 British fans were expected in Paris for the final. A large number of them did not have a ticket, as Liverpool's allocation for the game was 22,000, the same as Real Madrid. The rest of the tickets were at UEFA's disposition for general sale and invitations. According to Football Supporters Europe, an association which groups together fans of over 48 UEFA member countries, approximately 26,000 Liverpool fans had a ticket. To manage the large number of fans travelling without a ticket, something which is quite common amongst British clubs, a fan zone was set up in the 12th arrondissement of Paris with a capacity of 44,000. According to the Préfecture de Police and eyewitness accounts, the area was full throughout the match. Football Supporters Europe assessed the number to be more in the range of 45 to 50,000. Just by looking at these numbers, it is therefore absurd to imagine there being 40,000 Liverpool fans trying to break into the Stade de France. Where did they come from if the fan zone was full? And where did they disappear to once the game finally kicked off and all the remaining genuine fans entered? All that was left outside the ground at that time was 300 to 400 youths, certainly not Liverpool fans. Members of the FSE observed the chaos at Gate Y, the main entrance for Liverpool fans, for more than an hour and only witnessed a handful of people being turned away with fake tickets. Half of them unidentifiable as Liverpool fans and most likely locals. This observation corroborates the many images and videos taken on that night. Figures given by the SNCF, responsible for the main train lines connecting Paris to the Stade de France, also seem to contradict the Interior Minister's outrageous numbers. According to the SNCF, the Area D line transported 37,000 supporters in the direction of Saint-Denis. The Area B, which was running a limited service due to strikes, took just 6,200 passengers. They went on to state there was no unusual flux of passengers going back to Paris once the game started. So I guess the 40,000 ticketless fans just flew back to Paris on a magic carpet. In a tweet published last Monday afternoon, Darmanin reported 29 arrests in the immediate vicinity of the stadium. half of them British, of which 9 entered the stadium illegally. However, according to the news channel BFM, of all the people detained, none of them were British or they're related to intrusion or fake tickets. The French government are clearly using this fake ticket story to cover up basic and fundamental errors in the organisation and management of the final. Later on in Monday's press conference, Darmanin proceeded to tap himself on the back because no one had died. From all accounts, it does seem a miracle that no one did die, especially given the tactics employed by the police before the match to filter and funnel supporters. It would seem that what signs did exist to direct fans to the stadium took them down a horrendously tight walkway, made even tighter by police vans blocking the way. Not only that, but on the other side was a busy road, which fans eventually ended up spilling onto as numbers increased. Stewards and police were forced to abandon checks as people began to be crushed by the weight of the crowd. Even at this stage of their journey, it has come to light that supporters were already being pickpocketed and assaulted, their tickets being grabbed out of their hands. Having survived the walk to the stadium, the lack of turnstiles and organisation resulted in massive queues. Numerous fans have since come forward claiming their official Liverpool FC tickets were dismissed as fake on arrival at the turnstiles, only to be tear-gassed and pepper sprayed. It is alleged that some stadium staff held onto these fake tickets and resold them to more people. In an interview with Le Parisien newspaper, Ted Morris, secretary of the Liverpool Disabled Supporters Association, described his experience. He claims an 8-year-old disabled boy was tear-gassed by police. Another wheelchair user was tear-gassed by police. Blind supporters were tear-gassed by police. In a wheelchair himself, Ted explains how he made his way around to the wheelchair-accessible entrance with his wife, where he met 3 other wheelchair users who had been waiting for over an hour to enter the stadium because there was nobody manning the entrance. They eventually had to phone somebody from Liverpool Football Club to come round to the turnstile and let them into the stadium. On leaving the stadium, Ted had to argue with a steward to open the gates to let him out in his wheelchair. He claims there were people in wheelchairs that had to be carried over the turnstiles because stewards refused to open the gates. It was, quote, the most terrifying experience I have ever endured in my life. When police saw that he was in trouble, they just laughed at him. He blames UEFA for not doing due diligence in the first place in giving the Champions League final to Stade de France following the last-minute change from St. Petersburg. He blames stadium officials for putting nothing in place to assist disabled supporters. There was no signage anywhere indicating the disabled entrance. But most of all, he blames the police for putting himself and the people around him in danger, and he expects Gérald Darmanin to resign. Many other fans had a similarly terrifying experience after the match, something the Interior Minister barely mentioned in his press conference. Multiple witnesses have come forward to tell their post-match story, and it is truly appalling. The route from the stadium back to the station was barely lit, and from all accounts resembled a war zone. UFC fighter Paddy Pimblett, interviewed by RMC Sport, said he'd never been so scared in his life. He witnessed large groups of individuals with machetes, knives, iron bars, and bats. Groups of organised gangs attacked supporters from both teams, targeting the weakest people, stealing phones, bags, and other personal possessions. Riot police were present and launched more tear gas into the crowd. He compared it to like a scene from the movie Purge, a day in which all crime becomes decriminalised for a 12-hour period. If the government had just come out and admitted that mistakes were made, then you might say, okay, that was horrific, but at least next time they will learn from the mistakes and changes can be made for the future. But by denying there is even a problem, in the face of countless eyewitness reports and images thanks to social media, they are making the whole situation a million times worse. There has been a long-standing sweeping under the carpet in France when it comes to dealing with problems of drugs, delinquency, and crime in the Paris suburbs. It would appear that many of the perpetrators came from the local Saint-Denis area or were illegal immigrants, another massive issue in France. In the last few days, there have been signs that the initial explanation is cracking beyond repair. UEFA have ordered an investigation, as have the Sports Ministry, in which a high-ranking member resigned this week. And after several days of silence, President Macron has also spoken out, wishing to reimburse in full all those that were refused entry or decided to leave the scene for their own safety. Even Interior Minister Darmanin has apologized for the excessive use of tear gas. This story is not going away, and I am convinced that the truth will prevail in this case. There are just too many voices and too many shocking stories for Monsieur Darmanin and his colleagues to cover up this fiasco. The French press, in the most part, have joined their international counterparts in condemning the government and their reaction to this crisis. There are calls for the Interior Minister to step down, and given his attitude towards the Liverpool fans, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point he falls on his sword. Fans who, for the most part, stayed ridiculously calm despite being gassed, pepper sprayed, and treated like animals by police, assaulted and robbed by thugs, should be applauded and at the very least receive a public apology from the French government. Alright guys, that is a wrap for now. This shambles is far from over, and I will keep you updated on any developments from here in France. Let me know your experience if you went to the match in the comments below. Click the notification bell to stay up to date with the latest developments, and subscribe to Crime Dog for more crime content. You can see our first video on the chaos at Stade de France up here. Until next time, stay safe, merci beaucoup, et à bientôt.